Welcome back. We have invited young adult and adolescent representatives to help us understand what is happening from the perspective and personal experience of the Christian youth. So today, joining us for Real Talk is Ricardo Lawrence, Tiffany McLegon, Worrell Brown, and Fabia Richards, all Christians who have either been raised in Christian homes or who have a Christian background. Welcome all, and thank you for joining us today on Real Talk.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Good. What influenced your decision to become a Christian? Starting with Ricardo, what influenced that decision?
Well, for me personally, it was a case of being, well, here at NETA. I saw young persons that were very engaged in ministry, and coming from where I was coming from, the church I previously went to, though young persons were engaged, they didn't seem as committed as the ones that I came here and saw. And so I thought it was a good example, and it was something that I wanted to be a part of. And obviously, seeing your peers doing the right thing can have an impact on you, so it did for me personally. So that's why I opted to get involved in that way.
Good. Tiffany?
To be honest, the first reason I got baptized was because I didn't want to go to hell. So, you know, some churches like to preach the hell doctrine. If you don't baptize, you're going to hell. And I didn't want that. So I was like, okay, baptism is key. The water is troubled. Let's go drunk. But I got saved. I felt the personal call from God the second time I got baptized. And so it was a personal call that really influenced that decision to become saved.
Okay, very good. Worrell?
I would say growing up in a Christian home, seeing parents going to church, you know, and that engaged me into wanting to go into church with them, you know, learning more about God, that sort of thing. So, yeah, for me, going to church and just being engaged, seeing what it is like, get a feeling, yeah, that is it for me that, you know, influenced me to really attend church.
Okay, thank you. And Fabia?
Well, for me, I was basically born into NETA because my parents were Christians. Majority of my family are Christians. So growing up, you see everybody going to church every Sunday. You see them having encounters with God and all of that. So at first I was like, oh, I'm a Christian because mommy is Christian. But then I had an encounter, I would say, with God. I got to prove him for myself. Good. And so I made the decision to be baptized, and then, yeah.
Okay, good. So we're seeing a combination of socialization, peer influence, parental influence as well. Very good. So as you would have heard before, we are looking at and exploring why it is that the younger generation seem to be losing interest in the church and are more being influenced by external influences, right? And so I would want you to tell me, from your perspective as the Christian youth, why is the church losing the younger generation? Is it truly a case of love for the world over love for Christ? And if not, what are the reasons for the loss of interest being in being members of the church community? Is it just a matter of the world over Christ? You know, what's your take on that?
I think from my perspective, it comes down to relevance. There are some areas of society that focus on young people. Literally, they cater whatever they are offering to young people. So, for example, dancehall music then, They literally cater specifically to young people. Even though you may not be a young person as an artist, you are making music specifically to cater to that audience.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of times the approach that the church takes, which I can understand in some sense, is a more general approach and not necessarily one that targets young people with certain things. Because you'll have a youth department that will target young people, but then at the same time there are some concepts, there are some topics, there are some things that should be relevant to our stage that are not heavily focused on, and I think that is one of the things that could cause us to veer more towards what seems to be for us.
Okay, so do you all agree with what Ricardo had to say? Do you see music, specifically dancehall music, being of major influence because they are targeting your age group, your generation, speaking to issues that concern you? Do you agree, or do you have a different take on that?
I agree with Ricardo, but also where I'm coming from.
Yes.
Sometimes you have a lot of churches, there is a gap. And sometimes as young people we're really trying to find our way on our own. So we're baptized, yes, but we don't have anybody to necessarily shepherd us. So we have the pastor and they deal with the whole congregation, but after Sunday, when service is over, we don't necessarily have like one-on-one. So we're trying to lead each other. So leading blind. And what I know, even if it's foolishness, I'm going to tell you because that's what I know. And then when we try to do things our own way and we get it wrong, we come under attack from the persons who are supposed to be guiding us. And it isn't like that in the world, because you have a group of people, and if it's badness, they're going to look out for you. They're going to ensure that you're okay. But when you come to church, you feel isolated. So you're like, okay, let me just go where I'm at. And so that sometimes happens to young people.
So that generational gap which exists. So I'm hearing what is being done in church is sort of general and not so much specific to targeting your needs. And then the divide that exists between the generations in the church leaves you without the direct shepherding that you need. But you find it out in the world. Okay.
And if I may add, in my capacity at work, I was speaking to a young man.
Yes.
And I asked him why was he involved in crime and violence, and he specifically said older men around him
are grooming him
into that life. So when you have that instance of literally that influence, and as Tiffany said, there is a gap in the church where people are not so focused on influencing you
directly like that, right?
Because our attention span as young people obviously is what it is, and we will need persons who are consistently focused on influencing us in the right way. So when you don't have that and it's being done elsewhere, as I said, the attention will go there.
All right, so the young adults have spoken. Fabia, you seem to want to, as an adolescent, you seem to want to have something to add to that. What is your take on it?
Not only that they don't cater to us, but in some ways, sometimes you feel odd. And you'll be in church and you cannot find your place. But then when you go outside, you basically find your people. It would seem that way. You find persons that, would encourage you. You find them that are with you through everything. And then in church, not necessarily. Because most times, the youths are leaving, so it's mostly adults. And youths tend to say they don't understand. Sometimes they don't, but that's just reality.
Wow. Warrell, anything to add?
All right, my take on it, I believe that parents are not serious enough in the upbringing of their children, because now you tend to find that children have a choice as to whether they want to go to church or not. So I believe that parents engage in activities such as reading the Bible together, praying together, more than just a Sunday church lifestyle, would really bridge the divide, you know.
Yeah.
So that is my take on it.
Okay, so we're seeing the situation now where you're saying you're not getting the support from the older generation in the church. The younger ones are leaving, so even your peers, even from among your peers, there is that shortage of support there as well. But there's nothing lacking in that regard in the secular world. Wow, thank you for that. It is quite eye-opening just hearing from you. Thank you. So we have spoken about the dancehall music and the influence of the done in the community. What are some other modern secular influences which are out there? And can you explain what makes them more influential in the minds of young people? So what other influence are there for you? So dancehall music, the done, and the influence of your peers. You spoke of that. Is there anything else? Yes.
Social media.
Social media. Oh, yes. That giant.
Everything is on social media. Everybody can be on social media. It is free. One tap and several other settings. You have an account. And on social media, there is nothing is censored. And unfortunately, the algorithm pushes a lot of things that are worldly, and so it's always in your face. You're scrolling, and by the time you look, you know the whole of a dancehall song, even though you've never searched for it.
Wow!
And it sticks in your head. You see different trends, and like, okay, this is cool. I want to do this. There isn't much Christian influence. You have to go and search for it. And nobody wants to go and search for anything. You
want it at your fingertips.
You want it at your fingertips. And you see different things being advertised. And if you're not really grounded in a particular way, you can find church boring. Church can be boring. You have to learn to find the joy in church. You have to learn to find the joy in your salvation. Because if you come to church on a Sunday, after praise and worship finish, the jump up finish, you have to sit down for 2 hours to listen to word, or you listen to exhortation and testimonies, and as young people, our attention span is short. So if you lose us in the first 30 minutes, we're gone.
Wow.
And on social media, it's there in bite sizes. So you can get a whole experience in 30 seconds.
Oh my.
But here, not at NETA, but in church.
Yes.
In church, for you to get to the point to go on a whole journey, and some of us get lost
along the way. Oh wow.
And a lot of the activities, if you don't have a strong youth department, a lot of the activities are for old people or big people, and that's not fun. Yeah.
So social media is actually winning the competition, for want of a better word. It is so pervasive. Wow. And when you compare that to what the church is doing generally, the church is not as far-reaching, not as impactful, not as influential. Anything else to add? Yes, Fabia?
Because I hear a lot of persons will say, "Man, I'm baptized yet, but I'm here to live my life first."
Wow.
And it really, because persons tend to believe that, oh, church boring. And you can't wrong them, because in some cases, church really can be boring.
Can I ask you though, hold on, stick a pin. As it concerns youth departments, isn't it the young people who decide the activities and the programs and how you are engaged?
Not necessarily.
Not all the time.
Oh.
Because obviously there are some things that have to be appropriate. And it's not necessarily young people that determine what's appropriate and approved, exactly. So
okay.
Naturally that would mean that it have to end up be somewhere still
that would still be
involve older people, and they don't necessarily understand where we are at,
which goes back to the gap.
So you inevitably have to still deal with that gap where an older person is deciding, oh, you can't go out, you can, not that it's happening, but I'm just saying.
I understand. Yes, we're speaking in general terms.
So that to me is a deterrent in making it as fun as it needs to seem.
Engaging.
And engaging. So that could be an issue.
I'm hearing the word fun. Is it that in order for you to feel that you are not wasting your time in church, you have to be having fun at all times? That, is it should be a constant kind of party feel? What do you mean by fun and boring?
I think engaging. It has to stimulate your senses in a sense. Like, it's not that, well, for me personally, it's not that I need to be running up and down all the time. And it's not that I need to be laughing all the time either. But sometimes I need something that still engages me, keeps me focused on this activity. And there are times when it's hard to do that. And as Tiffany was saying, if you're not conscious about focusing on something, you end up losing out.
And you're saying social media does this for you? In the little bite sizes.
But on the topic of fun, it doesn't mean that we have to always be gallivanting or playing or everything. We need balance. So we can't have too much. This might sound weird.
Go ahead.
But we can't have too much spiritual stuff because we need a little time where we can just come and relax. We don't have to be in worship. We don't have to be in prayer. We don't have to be on fasting. But we want to, let down our hairs. We want to fellowship outside of that. Oh, I'm so holy. I'm speaking in tongues, Christian. That's all I do. It can get that way.
Okay, I am not disagreeing at all with you. This is your own experience you're sharing. All right, so we're seeing this, the social media, the music, the peer influence, the influence of the leaders in the communities. Any other influence?
Also on the topic of peer influence, I believe to be a Christian, well, a young Christian in this day and age, but I can only speak for this day and age, you have to have a strong backbone. You have to be firm. You cannot be one of those weak people who is very emotional, because when you go to school or you go to college, almost everybody is doing the partying, and naturally we're humans. We want to go where people are. We have to say, no, I'm called to be different. And sometimes it's hard to be the other one out because people are going to talk. People are going to call you Holy Mary, you're the skirt girl, or those are the ISCF people, or the UCCF people. So you really have to be able to deal with that mentally. And if you're not strong mentally, you're going to say, okay, alright, let me just be like everybody else, and then I repent on Saturday, come to church, and then you get caught in this double life thing. Because you want to fit in with your friends, because you're not senior church people outside of a Sunday service, so they're not there for you. These are the persons who I'm seeing, and I feel like I am cast out. But then on Sunday, you know what's right, and you're in the presence of God and your church people, so you have to kind of switch it up. Even though it's wrong.
So you're being forced to live a double life almost.
Well, not forced, but you have to be strong not to live a double life.
Not to live a double life. It is the temptation is there. All right, and as you were saying, because you don't have a lot of peers in the church to form that strong community of Christian friends, then the friends that you are around are more unsaved. Is that the case?
Well, you can have strong Christian friendship in church, but you're not seeing them a lot. So the most of the people you spend your time around are unsaved, and you can't help it because they're at school, they're at work. And so naturally anything or anybody you spend most of your time around
are going to influence you more.
Influence. You're going to have to be able to combat that.
All right, so Fabia, you are in high school. Give us your experience on that.
Okay, I can agree with Tiffany. It is very hard because, you see, for me, I don't have any Christian friends in my age group. All my friends are older, like 20s, 30s.
Wow, and you're 15.
big people, so they're like mentors instead of friends.
Yes.
When it comes on now to my peers, well, my personality itself, I have a strong personality, I would say. So certain things really don't make bother me. But I would be like the, what do I call it now? Mature.
One among the group.
Among the group.
Okay.
So sometimes I'm not going to like, I feel odd. And I wonder, why me one fear going like say, I'm too nice? And so sometimes, I'm going to be very honest, but I said, I'm going to do what I do.
Understand.
But at the same time, you know, you catch up on yourself and say, no, you can't do this because remember, say you're different from them. So it's really hard because it's a battle every day, especially going to school, taking public transportation, you see everything. Like going to our school, really nothing because you're taking bus, you're seeing everything, and you say, me can't live my mother's life too. So yeah, see, it's very hard. It is very hard.
Is it the same for you, Warrell, as a male? Is it the same experience being expressed by Fabia?
Well, I would say yes, because I mean, if you behave odd, as Fabia was saying, people nickname and say you behave like you're better than them, you're holy. You don't nickname a Christian. Even if you're not a pastor, you're a pastor for them. So
you're labeled and
yes.
there's a stigma attached to all of that.
Yeah.
And I can understand that at this stage in your development, you really want to fit in with your peers and feel a sense of belonging and identity.
Because sometimes I know Christians that are in my age group, but they aren't my friends. And then when I look at them and I'm like, it's really a battle if you're not strong. Because for me, I have Tiffany, I have my mother, and then I have people at church. So I'm not slip up. But when you watch them outside, and I say it's really hard for them because you see them and they're following, they're doing whatever, and it's really concerning because at the same time it takes a toll on you mentally because you don't know what to do. It's like you don't know yourself because you're somebody at church and then you go out, going to school, and you're a totally different person. So, and then now you say, what more should I do to fit in? Because as much as you're trying, you're not going to fit in as you would want to. So you're going to always feel like, what more can I do? What more can I do? And it doesn't get better. It really doesn't.
Do you think the church is aware of this struggle that the young people face when they go out from the protection, the boundaries of the church and are out in the open?
I think they know about it because, I mean, some of them were teens while being Christians while in their teenagers. But I don't think they know how hard it is now.
With the different types of influences.
And the changes and all the phones and the music. The music is worse nowadays. So everybody want to try this and want to do that. So it really, I mean, it is the same struggle, but I think it is worse now than it would be for them back then.
All right, and I'm hearing you, and I can relate. I got baptized myself when I was around 12, 13. So I can relate to being a Christian teenager. However, the kind of music and influence that you have now, really, we did not have in my day.
Yeah.
And so I can agree with that wholeheartedly. And as an adult now and a parent who raised Christian children, hearing you, it kind of brings to my recollection some of the ways I responded to my adolescent and young adult children, and I'm realizing I did a lot of that out of some serious ignorance. I really did not understand the difference in, because it would almost, I think for me, it's like I was using my experiences to influence the way I responded to the challenges that were manifesting in several different types of behaviors. And so, I mean, we have a lot to learn.
And if I may say, I think
yeah,
there are times when some young persons will try to express that, listen, this is a different time.
Yeah.
But a lot of times the persons that you try to express that to, them have a stubborn approach and no, because if I could do it, so can you. And
not understanding that it's a different set of different ball game.
And it's almost like, what are you going through? You shouldn't be going through anything because it was easy for me. When the truth is, as Fabian rightly said, it is so invasive nowadays. It's,
and pervasive.
It's pervasive. It's right there. Every time and everywhere you go, everything you do, it's right there in front of you. So it's hard to know.
And then you do not have the support.
Exactly.
Whether from even your own Christian peers, because you said they're few and far between. Wow. Yes, Tiffany.
Some of them aren't aware because sometimes we don't necessarily open up to them.
Mm-hmm.
But for those...
Before you go further, why? Why is that so?
Because I believe some of them make it their point of duty to not understand. Some of them don't understand. And some of them, I mean, they understand but they're either busy or they just don't know what to do. So
you're frustrated then?
Yeah, sometimes.
Or resigned to, oh, they'll never get it.
Yeah, they're not in my age group. These aren't affecting them. Yeah, they're old.
They're old. Okay.
But sometimes, for the ones who do understand, I'm kind of convinced that as you grow older, you kind of like, okay, you kind of lose certain memory of how you were. Because some of them in their teenage years, they were horrible. They were
rebels.
Lukewarm Christians, and then they'd stay bad. And then now when you meet them in their 40s, oh, you know, them act as if they were born speaking in tongues, and they're so holy and up there. And so when they see you, they're like, yeah, it's the Shabba Shabba. And when they see you, they're like, oh, you know.
So you're not getting empathy and understanding. You're not feeling that there's an understanding of where you're at and what your struggles are.
And to be honest, you know, some of them, they're worse than us.
Okay.
But when you go and they see that you sleep, they're like, how could you? And then they start throw the whole judgment and like, okay.
Oh, wow. So so you do indeed feel a sense of being judged and humiliated or rejected in the church because of your struggles?
Until you find the right people.
Okay.
Because even though there are a lot of ones that you would rather not to deal with, you have some of them who are really there for you. Because I like to call my people my bonus family. And so I have a bonus father and I have two bonus sisters. And I know that if I'm struggling with anything, I can call one of them anytime, and I can say, okay, I'm going through this, and they'll try to help me, they'll try to understand, and if they don't understand, I have one sister who would say, okay, this is my level of expertise, this is where that I can handle, but pray, and she's like, okay, try and get help there, or call so and so.
So it is not all negative then. You're not all saying that there is no, it's like a wholesale rejection or humiliation or, you know, judgment that you're experiencing in the church.
No, you have to find the right people. They're few, but they're there.
They're there, but you have to find them.
I think for a male, it is a little different.
Yes. Explain how.
I'm not sure if Warren will agree, but alright. So for most of my time as a Christian, I've been attending. Well, all of my time as a Christian, I've been attending NETA, and I've rarely had males my age group. It's either they're younger or they're older, and you suddenly become a person who is in between, and it's either you have to be a big brother or you have to be a little brother. But then at the same time, the older brothers sometimes aren't as impactful as they need to be, and you are expected to be a particular way with the younger brothers. So it's not like you can lean upon them and say, say me I go through this, right? So it's like, yes, you can find people who are there, but for men who don't like to talk, who don't like to express, who don't like to be vulnerable, it's way harder. Women like to talk.
So we'll find our community,
so
our group of sisters.
Find your people.
Yes.
But a man will sit down, 4 men will sit down and play domino and give 6 and we laugh and we drink and we talk. But we're not talking about those vulnerable places that we get to.
Wow.
And it's much more harder when you're a man because you have to deal with that as well. So even though say, I'm struggling as a Christian, man don't like say them a struggle.
Yeah.
Man don't like say, I'm weak in this area, I'm struggling with this.
Yes.
Right? So you have to deal with that and there is obviously that total lack of support in that area.
Yeah, because if we generally when we look in the church, we see that we have more females than males as members of the Christian community. And so even from the get-go, there is a deficit. And so I can understand where you're coming from. Warrell, do you share the same opinions or are you affected in the same way?
I would say yes.
You say yes?
Yes.
Wow. And I'm hearing a lack of discipling.
Yes.
Yes.
A lack of discipling. The Lord did say to us that we are to make disciples. And I'm getting an impression that where the church is falling short as it concerns discipling the younger generation. And I guess this is why you're struggling, not being able, having to search to find confidence and support. Should not be the case.
It should be where it is readily
available.
Made available to you.
Yes.
You are approached
to
be discipled and that process should be consistent because for example, you will know that someone can do it and they'll do it every now and then, but then there are times when they may not be available to
when you need them the most.
Need them the most.
Wow.
That's the issue.
Wow.
Sometimes.
All right, so on that note, are you therefore of the view that the church does not adequately provide the answers that young people need regarding like their life in a matter that is relevant to them? Is the church providing you the answers to your questions, or somewhat, or not at all?
I can speak from myself and me being at NETA.
Yeah.
Because at NETA we're blessed to have an extraordinary bishop.
Yes.
And so if you're going through something, or if the youth department needs him, he will show up and he will join us in our meetings, and he's not going to just give it to us raw. Like, he's not going to pretty it up, he's going to tell us.
He comes down to your level to meet you where you're at.
He's act like him, a young boy, like our age, young man, sorry Bishop. And he will rap with us. But a lot of churches don't have that opportunity, and they don't have. Them have some old bishop who are just far out of touch, and if something happens, they're like, okay, go and pray. They don't understand. They don't even use social media, so they
can't relate, right?
What we're going through. But I believe, to be fair, we have to be fair. Sometimes we're going through things and we keep it to ourselves, because sometimes as young people, in our heads we feel like we have it, and we know what we're supposed to do, and sometimes they really give us advice, but we're not that. Like, they're not that don't make sense. And so they give it to us, and sometimes they get frustrated because we're not listening to them. But some of the things I believe the church also shun away from. I think one topic too is sex. Like, go ask some church somebody about sex and then rebuke you. A lot of them like, you're not married, don't answer that question.
Wow.
But it doesn't happen here. But a lot of churches.
Yeah, we're talking in general, right?
And so they will have the answer and not provide it. okay, Psalms 23 says this, and they tell you everything that you need to fast and you need to pray, but okay, what about when I'm not in the spirit?
The real life, practical, day-to-day help that you need. Wow. What do the rest of you have to say? Do you agree with that? That the church really is sort of lacking in that regard? What other issues, what other topics? So we talk about sex. What else are they not, is the church not addressing satisfactorily?
I think, as I said earlier, being a man. Being a man.
Yeah, what it means to be
what
man.
It means to be a man. Because the world is going to expect you to be a man. Your friends are going to expect you to be a man. Women are going to expect you to be a man. But you are sitting here saying,
what is a man?
What is a man?
And the reality of our society is that many of our boys
don't have that example.
Don't have the fatherly example. They are not being socialized by males.
Either they don't have the right example or they don't have any example at all. So the one you're seeing is doing what they're not supposed to be doing. And you know that they're not supposed to be doing that. But then you're not seeing someone who is adequately influencing you to do what you are supposed to do. Or at least tell you in a consistent way, in a practical way, in a structured way. Alright, this is how you get from point A to point B. This is what you do every day to get to this result, whatever. So I think for me, the church totally does not deal with that. And I think inevitably, if you are found to be lacking in that area of your identity, it makes it that much harder to be a Christian. Because all of a sudden you are questioning your whole self. And there's where the struggle begins.
So for you, you're experiencing a deficit in that regard. But then as you said, Tiffany, sometimes it's not that you can't find the answer, but because you don't think that the older generation will understand anyway, or because sometimes they act like they don't, you prefer not to even bother to even say it, or because of your own stubbornness, because you said you want it to be balanced and be fair. Sometimes because of your own stubbornness, you might even reject the advice because you want to do it your way.
For example, you know how, yes, we're Bible believing Christians, and so I'm going through something, and I come to you, and I'm okay, you know, I'm going through something, and then you're going to tell me a scripture, for example, you know, as you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and you should walk, and this and that.
And fear no evil.
And fear no evil. But I listen to you, I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're so caught up in the spiritual aspect, and sometimes we're going through something, and we don't want to hear anything about church. We don't want to hear any Bible verse. We don't want. Just pray for us in secret. You don't have to tell us that you're praying for us. Just give us a hug. Or
some more practical, hands-on, involved.
Because we know what the Bible says. We're here every Sunday. We do fasting. We do prayer.
So you don't need to have the word quoted to you.
No.
You want to experience the word instead of having it quoted to you. I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. So rather than quote a scripture, live the scripture to me. So embrace me.
Tell me how it applies now.
Yeah.
Help me to apply it
to my life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if you quote it.
Yeah, but then
what after that?
What? Yeah. So it's not enough to just say the Bible says X and Y and move on. But how do I now interpret that and make it relevant to my concern?
Like even when they're telling you the scripture, they're trying to help you, but it's just not in a way that you would want to be helped. So there's also that issue, because if I'm hungry and you're going to pray for me,
the Lord is my shepherd.
Feed me.
Practical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I don't have money, give me money.
Really?
Don't.
But I get the point.
Yes.
I get the point.
Not in that way, but I mean, like,
yeah.
come on.
See Jehovah Jireh.
Yeah, like.
All right. So as we're on this topic, on this subject, so let me ask you, for those of you with Christian parents, I mean, is this your your experience where you're finding that your parents, they really don't understand what you're coming up against. You know, they love you and they want the best for you, but they just don't get it. Is that what you're experiencing? Because we're saying the church, but we have Christian parents, also part of the church, but you live with them. Do your Christian parents, do you feel as if when you try to express your needs, they get it? Or do they, like everybody else, quote a scripture and say, go pray? Yes, Fabia.
Well, for me, in that case, sometimes, I will express myself, but it won't just come like that. Like my mommy, she will see me and she said, come to you. I said, alright. She said, something wrong with you, talk to me. If you know me, I say me love Christ. At the same time,
the tears start flowing.
And then I will explain it to her, and yes, she practical, but at the same time, she still instill the spiritual side. So it's like a balance.
Okay, so you're getting that.
Yes, but in some cases, sometimes I keep it to myself because, as Stephen said, you know what, you're not more Jesus.
And you know she's going to come with Jesus.
So just keep it to myself. It's not right.
But it's your reality. And this is real talk. We're facing the reality, you know. Anybody else? So, Christian parents, do they get it, or are they quoting scripture at you like all the other church members? Because shouldn't it be different? Shouldn't it be a different experience in my home with my parents rather than when I'm out there in the general church community?
Sometimes it's not that. Like putting aside the quoting scriptures, when you express yourself, how you would expect them to reply, you don't get that response. So you're like, okay, so next time,
don't say anything. Wow.
With
that's interesting.
Christian
yes.
Parents or Christian guardians, especially the ones who have like a position in church where other persons have to come to them and they have to minister to people. So let's say they're a mother in the church, or they're an elder, or
some leader.
They're a leader in the church. A lot of times they overlook their household and they minister to everybody else at church. So to me, when I get a little ministering to, and they pour out so much at church, they get so involved and they're so passionate, and they leave everything on the rostrum and they lay hands, and then when you come home,
nothing for you, nothing left for you.
Or they say, but you have to do this because they're elder, or you have to do this because
so set the example.
They set the example.
Yeah.
You have to come to church. You can't stay home because persons are going to look. But you're not treating me like how you're treating them. And so it kind of like bring this resentment, and you can seek love elsewhere, and people.
I can understand. You said hypocrite a while ago.
A whole heap of something.
Okay. I just wanted to know if you said hypocrite. Okay.
Well, but it almost can lead to that, because you know that you are not getting what others are getting.
What they're giving to others.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's like, and you can't be bitter about it in public. You know? So you end up having to play some sort of hypocrite, because I don't want to go come in with my vexed face, and then people start saying, is it that elder so and so or minister so and so is not doing what they, So
wow.
you have to play the fool and play the part rather.
You find yourself in a situation where you're not being ministered to the way you want to by your parents, but then you have to put on a show. Which is an added pressure, right?
Or people come and say to you, let's say your aunt is such a nice woman, and when I was sad, she was there. Which auntie?
Where was she when I was sad, right?
And you're like, yeah man, it's true, she's such a beautiful lady.
Wow.
You're not experiencing that, but you can't show that side in public. You just have to play along, because if you do that, they're going to call you wicked.
And then at the same time, in the home, your parents are a bit more vulnerable, a bit more let down sort of way. So them tend to be more moody and more miserable, because they're home,
Yeah.
It's like how how when you approach them about something, you are my child, you know.
Yes.
So it's a different approach from this is my ministry, you know? and it's a whole lot less self-control maybe, and if you falter, you are going to be disciplined, not necessarily ministered to, because I think there's a difference.
Yes.
And that ends up being a deterrent for you to express yourself when you're facing certain things, because I'm expecting that mommy or daddy will react this way when I express that, so I drop the glass and broke it, you know. Whereas if it's somebody at church and you are seeing this as the child, you are seeing somebody else drop the glass and broke it, and they are loved and cared for and brought up and guided exactly, and it's okay, don't cry. But when you just do it a while ago, God, you're dead. Exactly. You get the call, say your father, come home, come beat you. So it's a totally different experience, and you end up, as I said, feeling as though you're being robbed of your parents, and that's a challenge too.
Added pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It also brings resentment, because if me did do that, you'd have chastised me. So what's the difference? And I am your child. So it brings resentment.
So it can be so it's demotivating for you. Okay, wow. There are so many questions that I have as it pertains to the experience, the Christian experience of the youth in church. You know, the time is not enough to adequately just explore and address them. But I think we need to really get to the bottom of some of these things and so we can understand. Okay. Your generation, Gen X, you're called. Gen Z. Thank you. You see the generational gap right there, so. You see it right there, so. Is there an X?
Before us.
Before. Okay, so the Gen X would be the persons in their 30s? Please enlighten my darkness.
Okay.
People before we.
If you're not in Gen Z,
you're older. Oh, okay. All right. So Gen Z. Okay. Thank you for the education. Yeah. So for Gen Z, are you subscribing to? And I have heard this said, and I just want to know if it's true or not. Do you subscribe to the traditional expectations of church for young people, that you get baptized, you get an education, you get a home or something, like get a job, get a home, get married, have 2 kids and live the nice Christian life all by the time you're 25 or so?
No.
Wow. Not even an hesitation.
And I think it's because we've seen the people before us get all of that, and they're still unhappy. And still failing. Yeah, and still failing. Oh. You see it every day.
Okay.
It's not only that, the whole failing thing, but I remember we were in church one Sunday, and Bishop was explaining to us the whole single ministry and the married ministry. I don't want to have to, in my young age, having to, honey, can I do this? Or
oh, you're more independent minded.
Yes, I want.
Yeah,
because
I think
when you're married,
generally that's how we are.
So it's not a gender thing. It's across the board for both genders. Okay.
You have to have respect for your husband, and you have to be led. But for me, 25, married with a child. I'm a child. I believe, we graduate, we seek further education, and we get married at like 28 and probably like the next 5 years have maybe 1 child or 2, if possible.
Wow.
But getting married early,
nah,
that's not good.
Not at all. So what is the new route now? What are your priorities in the lineup?
Okay, well, for me, I finish school,
Mm-hmm.
I get a house, then a car, and then anything happen afterwards.
So you want your complete and total independence. Okay, hear you. Yes, Warrell?
I would say completing education, owning more business, building up sources of income, then house, then anything after.
Okay. Tiffany?
Definitely education and the different sources of income, because the one stream of income is economy.
Yeah, that's not enough.
No.
So settling down and having a family and children and all those things kind of...
If I can't afford it,
you're looking at affordability.
yes, so the house, the car, I mean, the house can come, you and your husband do the NHT thing, but somewhere to live, you know, the car, and you get married, and then you can decide if you want to
Have a child. So we're seeing parenting coming later on in life.
Definitely later.
Okay, Ricardo, is it the same for you?
Not necessarily.
No, I mean in terms of...
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to be, what's the word, marketable. You don't want to have education. You don't want to have streams of income. You don't want to have assets.
Yeah.
You want to have things that provide stability, and then after that, those things that will require of you, you'll be better able to
take on marriage and all those other responsibilities.
Obviously, you need resources to fund a marriage, a family, etc. So I think that is the focus of this.
Back in my day, it was all about, I mean, the wives became housewives, and the husband would go out and work, and the wife would stay home and raise the children, or so on.
Yeah, that's not...
Is that archaic?
Yes.
No, not really.
Yes.
All right, so we're hearing mixed views. All right, mixed views.
Let me talk.
Yes, go ahead, Tiff.
Right. I still want to have everything for myself. So, you know, the whole degrees and the house and everything. But if I find myself in a position where I get married and my husband is making figures, and he say, stay home, me not ask twice, like, stay home.
So you're
take care of the house.
You're fine with that, even though you would have been a professional and all of that. So it's for you. It's not a matter of me needing to be completely 100% independent of a man and all of that. That's not what you're saying.
I have passive income, but don't do a 9 to 5. Thank you.
No,
okay.
When I said it's archaic, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean that.
It could never be considered.
Yeah, because while we know that there are circumstances where you don't have to have a 9 to 5, and you can be at home and you're making, as Tiffany said, passive income.
Yeah.
At the same time, the way it used to be done, that's what I'm saying is archaic.
Yes.
Because in those days, nothing ever named passive income really.
Right.
You were just a stay-at-home woman where you take care of the people, them clean the house and all of that, and when him come home, him cock up him foot and you decide that. That's what I'm saying is archaic.
Yes.
But if my wife in the future wants to stay home and she still bringing money and everything is alright,
you don't have a problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
You stay home with her too.
So let me ask you guys, do you feel that the church is understanding of this change in the priorities of the younger people in the church, and are actually providing that support system to accommodate that? Or is it that the church is holding on to the traditional view?
I don't think they're doing it at the pace that they need to.
Okay.
I think that they are realizing, because obviously some of them are actually in that whole phase of understanding what is important in this day and age, but the pace that it needs to be done at,
it's not being...
When it comes to a young person, because remember, we are seeing everything instantly, and we expect instant gratification.
So the church needs to
even though
keep up with...
so even though we know that some of these things don't come overnight, you at least want to learn it at a pace where you can
apply
it quickly enough that when you reach a particular stage, because goals are time bound, you want to be at this stage by this age at least, right? And if the church does not show you these things
and provide the support that you need,
it will become as though
the church is kind of redundant. It's not meeting that need, those needs that you have.
I believe it depends on your leader and kind of the denomination, because you still have people who believe that women shouldn't do this and women shouldn't do that. So we can't even factor those in this.
So
if you have a leader who, I wouldn't want to say like have sense, but if you have a leader who lives that life,
aware of, they are keeping up with the times.
Yes, and they too are on an academic journey. So they'll encourage you to seek higher education, and they'll encourage you to set up yourself so you won't be vulnerable or you won't be like shaky and all.
So it goes back to the type of leadership and the denomination of the Christian church. All right. So is there hope though? Because I'm hearing the church is slow. The church, a lot of us don't, the older generation, we really don't get it. We don't understand what you're going through. We're not providing the support as much as you need it and all of that. But is there hope? What does effective and impactful ministry to young people look like? So you're telling me what is lacking and all of that. What would you say is a ministry to young people that is relevant, effective, impactful?
I think a common term in the lives of young people, and I'm sure when I say this, everybody will agree that it's common, is much energy. We are experiencing instant influence in every other sector. So I think the church needs to at least match that energy, whether it be that it's a collaborative effort between young people and the older generation, or the older generation needs to do more as it relates to their involvement in being essentially in our face with the effort and the discipleship and the guidance. And then at the same time understanding that what the church is against is a real enemy, and understanding that you need to put up a fight too as the church in the lives of the young people. So I think the change that we need to see will come when we are conscious of A, what we are facing, and B, what we need to do and how pervasive we need to be about how we're approaching it.
So the church needs to become knowledgeable, first of all, of what it is you're going through, and seek to meet just as equally and zealously the needs that you have as it is met out in the world.
I think we need so after you've given us the opportunity to express what we are facing and what we need, you have to tailor the approach to meet that need. It needs to be customized.
So you are saying, so I'm hearing from what you're saying that it's not that you're saying that the church is not relevant or that the older generation has knowledge and understanding that they can pass on to you. You are open to receiving from. But it's just, it needs to be in a relevant way.
We are open, and the church is very relevant.
Yes.
It is the way to go. We know that. But I believe that we should be included in, like the church needs to include young people in the decision making.
Decision, oh yes.
Make decisions for us without knowing what we're facing. So
good points.
Make decisions with the best intention, but it won't go anywhere if it doesn't minister to us or relevant.
Good point. You know, as you said that, I'm a teacher by profession, as you all know, and on every school board that I know of, there is the student representative on that school board. The counselor, the head of the student council body sits on the school board, and so they have the opportunity to bring to the board the concerns of the students and represent students' need at that level. And so I'm hearing that coming from you, that decision making needs to be influenced with the knowledge of what is happening in your generation, so that whatever is planned and implemented is actually things that you are relevant to where you're at and what your needs are and so on. Am I correct? Okay, yes.
But also, because we are the tomorrow, or the leaders of tomorrow, I believe that the current leaders, they should have us as
at their feet,
understudy.
Yes.
Like a Gamaliel and a Paul.
You can't tell us to go out and be the light. What light? Teach us how we should go about our lives. Well, not necessarily, but teach us what you know. Pour it into us, so we can take that pouring, build on it, and be better leaders of tomorrow. Because we're all going to go away, and it would be unfortunate if the leaders today should die with all that they have, because we're going to have to start from scratch. And it
yes, it shouldn't be. So you're saying you want to be embraced, to be pulled in, and discipled, poured into, so that you can run with that baton, as so to speak.
I think there needs to be a knowledge that there cannot be any success if you do not have the
successors. Yeah.
And I think the church needs to be a bit more intentional about ensuring that we know what we're supposed to do, whether or not the older generation is around.
So the church needs to know what you are facing, understand where you are at, pull you in, meet in the middle, and then they now can in turn pour into you. So it's a give and take. It's a give and take that you're asking for. Not to be excluded, not to be overlooked, but to be pulled in, embraced, listened to, heard, engaged in relevant ways, and poured into, so that you can grow and develop. So final word, you just said it. I was going to ask you what you wish the older generation understood what it means to be a Christian youth living in this world. And I'm going to ask you, for each of you, one thing, if you were talking to the church face to face, one thing that you would want the church to understand about what it means to be a Christian youth living in this world.
It's hard. But seriously though, it is hard, and we are being pulled. We are really being pulled. For example, when I am, and going back to what I said earlier about men in the church, when I am at work, the men around me tell me, be a gallus, have house and car, and get girl, and get picnic, and live a life that is totally contradictory. And you are listening to that every day you go to work. And as Stephanie said earlier, you are seeing those persons more than you are seeing church members in most cases. So
your one thing is?
So my one thing is realize that persons around you are trying to influence you, and start to realize that you need to try harder to influence us as young people.
Thank you, Ricardo. Tiffany?
My one thing would be to tell them that we're actually trying our best. Like, some of us are trying our best to function and to thrive in this mixed world. Also, just to encourage them to be real. Don't act as if you have it all together. Don't paint this picture of, when you're baptized, you see?
Perfection.
Life nice. That is life. When it's not like that. So be real with us. We don't expect you to tell us all of your business. We don't expect that. But don't act as if to be a Christian, you're being called to live a perfect life.
Okay. I understand what you're saying. Yes, Warrell.
All right. I would say, I'll tell them that there's a lot of temptation out there for us young people. I mean that, as Brother Ricardo said, it is very hard, and as Stephanie said, it's very hard to function with the two-sided. You know, you have to be strong, you know. So I said that there's a lot of temptation. You know. I'd also said to them that if they can guide us more and just work with us, that would really help us in times like this.
Thank you. Fabia?
My one thing is that when we as youth slip up, do not chastise us, but to tell us where we went wrong in a respectable way, because respect goes both ways.
Hold on. Do not chastise, meaning?
Sorry, but don't condemn, don't tear us down.
Okay.
Put from backbench, all of that. No.
Yeah, no embarrassment.
No embarrassment.
Okay.
Just guide us. Yeah, with love and all of that. Compassion
and empathy and so on. Okay, thank you all so much. It was, for me, and a member of the older generation, a very enlightening conversation. I learned a lot. I recognize that I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board and do some homework myself. So thank you. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your sincerity, for your openness. It is really well appreciated. Well, there we have it. Our Christian youth have spoken. We have heard them. What now will be the response of the older generation of us? After all, are we going to sit by and allow the influence of the world to have more impact on the lives of our children and end up being like a Rachel, weeping bitter tears because we have lost our children? To this question, my response is most definitely not. So it is time for us to take action. It is time for us to embrace our youth and to do so in a way that is relevant to their lives. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being here today. This is Real Talk, and we are here for the resolutions that we need. Thank you very much.
New Ebenezer Tabernacle Apostolic,
where everyone is a minister and love is real.